Do you have a true scary quack you'd like to quack my way? Just go to astheravendreams.quack and quack the button to do so. And of course, quack you. This may be hard for you to believe, but I'm a duck. I recently bought a new laptop and I was browsing through the human internet, and I remembered this terrifying event that happened to me a really long time ago, and I thought that I should share it. About 2 weeks ago, I experienced something pretty scary at my local pond. While nothing too serious happened, it still left me feeling rather uneasy and certainly ruffled a few feathers. It was a peaceful afternoon at the pond where I usually spend my days. I don't remember what day of the week it was, because I'm a duck, and I have zero understanding of the concept of naming days. The sun was shining and the air was filled with the soothing sounds of quacking and splashing, as my fellow ducks went about their business. I was happily nibbling on some aquatic plants when I felt a sudden chill run down my bill. I glanced around, trying to locate the source of my discomfort. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was off. I continued eating, but I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. Moments later, I saw it. A large, dark shadow loomed above me, blocking out the sun. Panic set in, and my heart raced as I tried to make sense of what was happening. I looked up, and there it was. An enormous bird circling above us. At first, I couldn't quite make out what kind of bird it was, but it was clearly much bigger than any of us ducks. Its wingspan seemed to stretch across the entire sky, casting an ominous shadow over the pond. The other ducks began to notice as well, and an uneasy tension spread through the flock. My instincts told me to take cover, so I quickly swam towards a nearby patch of reeds and hid beneath the foliage. From my hiding spot, I watched as the large bird continued to circle overhead. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I wondered if it was a predator searching for its next meal. The other ducks at the pond began to take cover as well, seeking refuge in the reeds or beneath overhanging branches. We all held our breath, waiting for the worst to happen. The large bird seemed to take notice of our collective fear, and it swooped lower as if to get a closer look at us. My body tensed. I was prepared to bolt if the bird decided to strike. But then, something unexpected happened. The large bird suddenly changed direction and began to fly away from the pond. It soared higher and higher into the sky, eventually disappearing from view. The pond was left in an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of our own shallow breathing. After a few tense moments, we began to emerge from our hiding spots, relief washing over us as we realized that the danger had passed. Though nothing truly terrifying happened, that close encounter with the large bird left me shook. The experience reminded me that, as a duck, I'm not always the biggest or strongest creature in the wild. And there are moments when I must rely on my instincts to stay safe. So, there you have it. My absolutely, completely, totally, 100% and undoubtedly true scary story from the perspective that you may not get a lot of the time. While it may not be the most horrifying tale, it was certainly a frightening experience for me and my fellow ducks. Life in the pond can be unpredictable, but we stick together and we do our best to navigate the challenges that come our way. Hey everyone, I wanted to share an experience that I had last week when I was at lunch. There's a park practically behind my work, so I like to go there on my lunch break to eat and decompress, especially on the more stressful days. So, being that there were a lot of meetings that could have been an email, I decided to go to the park. I got there and sat in the same place that I usually sat, which was on a swinging bench that looked out into the lake. It was a beautiful day, too. It was in the high 60s, the sun was shining with no clouds in sight, and being by the lake, there was a slight, cool breeze, but I loved it. For lunch, I was having a tuna salad sandwich, some chips, and grapes. I began to enjoy my lunch and just sat watching the water splash around, when I saw a few ducks wading into the water. They were swimming in my direction, which got my hopes up a bit, thinking that they might come up to the edge close to me and then I could get a picture of them. And sure enough, I was right. They continued to get closer and eventually even got out of the water on the side closest to me. So, being the person that I am, I took out my phone and readied it to snap some photos, when I noticed they were walking closer to me. They seemed a little hesitant, maybe curious, but now I was wanting them to come closer. So I made the quick decision to share my lunch with them. I started by tossing a carrot, which I forgot to mention earlier I was also eating with my lunch. I tossed it at them, and they seemed to chase it down pretty quick and ate it. Then they both stared at me like they expected more. After a few more carrots, though, they seemed to lose interest. So I started tearing off pieces of my sandwich, and they seemed to love it. They were even coming up close to me and taking it from my hand. I gave them small pieces and was able to get a few videos and photos of them. Now, I was starting to feel brave, and come on, they were ducks, they're adorable. So I thought I would try to pet one. I gave another piece of my food to them, and as I reached down to pet them, the one pulled back and hissed at me. It made me jump, but I put my hands up apologizing to the duck as if it could understand me. However, the duck didn't seem to accept that, and then charged at my leg, biting it. I was wearing pants, so it didn't really hurt, but he was just going at it, constantly nipping at me. I tried to shoo it away and kicked it off, but this only seemed to anger it more. He was now hissing, quacking loudly, flapping his wings, and charging at me, even attempting to fly at my face. I was pretty freaked out at this point, so I threw my food down, hoping to distract them, and took off. To my horror, this duck was still following me, running closely behind me. I jumped into my car, thankful that I drove that day, and I watched as this duck jumped on the hood of my car and tried biting at the window. While I sat there trying to figure out what to do, some guy must have seen this and came over and managed to push the duck off of my car. Once he was off, I waved to the guy, thanking him, and I gunned it out of that park. So, that's the closest encounter I've had with a duck, and I refuse to get close to another one because of it. Maybe there are nicer ducks out there, but I don't want to risk it. So I'll just watch them from the internet. And a word of warning to everyone else, watch out for those ducks out there. So, check this out. This happened to me and my buddy last week. We were swimming around in one of our favorite lakes as our day to just chill. I love this place. There's a perfect spot that's always sunny and warm where you could see the bottom of the water. I loved kicking my feet through it and feeling the rocks and moss hit my feet. Anyways, we were just swimming along when my friend pointed out something that was shining on the other side of the lake, so we started swimming in that direction. When we got there, we jumped out of the water, and we noticed the shining thing we saw was coming from some kind of bag that was on the bench, next to some lady. At first, I was annoyed that my friend had dragged us all the way over here, and we couldn't even take the thing. But then the lady tossed something on the ground at us. As we got closer, we realized it was a carrot, but my friend didn't hesitate to eat it. I just stared at him for a moment because I knew where this was headed, and he was always so very gullible. I continued to stand there in disappointment as he kept eating them when the lady then tossed something else to us. Now, I'd be lying if I said it didn't smell delicious. So, I decided to get closer, and yes, I was weak and I tried some. It was fantastic. I don't know what it was, but it was soft and tasty. She continued to throw more, so I tried to grab a few more bites before my friend did, and I was enjoying myself. Here's where the problem came in, though. I noticed that she had her little device out, presumably taking pictures of us, which did annoy me a bit. I never signed a release form, but I tried to let it go, thinking we'll just finish off her food and then quickly leave. But no. Oh no. She had much more sinister plans. I've seen this happen before. As I leaned down for one more piece of food, I saw her hand reach over my head. I knew it. She was going to try and duck nap me and take me home. It never fails. But I was prepared this time. I quickly pulled my head back and hissed at her. This caused her to jump back as well and hold up her featherless wing in defeat. She thought that was it. She thought that she would get away with just apologizing and could leave. Oh no. Not this time. This time, I would take revenge for all of my fellow friends and family. I looked at her, I squinted my eyes, and I said, "It's duckin' time." And that's when I charged at her, quacking, hissing, and flapping my wings as much as my little body could muster. I didn't want to sit back and let it happen or just run away from it, so this lady could go and try to do the same to another duck. No, I wanted her to regret her decision and be afraid of us. So, when she stood up and started walking away, I followed her. I continued quacking loudly and chasing her until we reached her big metal death machine. She thought she could just drive away, but I stood on her hood and continued quacking and flapping. Unfortunately, some other human came up to me, probably one of her little minions, and pushed me off of the car. I turned my attention to him long enough to see her take off, until I could no longer see her. And then I decided that this new guy wasn't worth my time. So, I calmed down and headed back over to my friend who had just watched this all play out. And that's one of the reasons I did that. To protect dumb ducks like him. I've never seen that lady again, thankfully, and I hope I never do. But I do also hope that she learned her quackin' lesson. Greetings. I know this might sound a little weird, but I recently learned how to communicate with humans. And I just had to share my story with you all. I'm a duck, and I had a terrifying experience that I'll never forget. It happened in a swamp not too far from a quaint little town. I hope that you find my tale as chilling as I did. It was a foggy evening, and the swamp is usually quiet. The air was heavy and the eerie silence was broken only by the sound of my webbed feet squelching through the murky water. I was minding my own business, searching for some tasty bugs and mollusks to snack on. As I continued to paddle through the swamp, I noticed an unusual shape up ahead. It was partially hidden in the dense fog and murky water, but I could make out that it was a small rickety boat. I hesitated, sensing that something was off. My instincts told me to swim away, but curiosity got the best of me, and I paddled closer to investigate. As I approached the boat, I noticed that it was filled with odd trinkets and strange-looking items. Jars filled with mysterious liquid, bones, and other bizarre objects were piled high, casting sinister shadows on the boat's rotting wood. It was then that I heard a soft, chilling voice coming from the boat. "Ah, my little friend, come closer," the voice whispered. I couldn't see who or what was speaking, but something about the voice sent shivers down my feathers. I should have turned around and swam away, but I was frozen with fear. "Who's there?" I quacked nervously, trying to sound brave. A figure emerged from the shadows. The creature was hunched over, covered in tattered rags, and had long, gnarled fingers that clutched a wooden staff. Its face was hidden by a dark hood, but I could see two glowing eyes staring at me from the darkness. The air around the creature seemed to thicken with a malevolent energy. Just a curious duck," the figure hissed. "I've been watching you, you know. I've been waiting for someone like you to come along." It extended its hand, and to my horror, I noticed that the bones of other birds and small animals were woven into the fabric of its garments. I had to get out of there. My heart was quacking in my chest, and every fiber of my being was screaming at me to get away. But the creature had other plans. It raised its staff and began chanting in a language that I could not understand. The swamp around us seemed to come alive, the water churning, the fog closing in around us. In a desperate bid to escape, I flapped my wings and I took off, flying through the thick fog, my heart pounding. The creature's chants echoed in my ears, and I could feel the darkness of the swamp reaching for me, trying to pull me back. Finally, I burst through the fog and found myself in a different part of the swamp. Not too long after that, I woke up. As I woke up in the pond, I looked around and noticed one of my friends was swimming peacefully. As I glanced over to the left, I saw something shining on the other side of the pond. What happened next was pretty messed up, but that's a story for another time. So that, my ducks, was a collection of truly terrifying stories with ducks. I really do hope that you enjoyed this feathery collection of quackin' stories. I can't think of any more duck puns. I feel like there's more, and some of them are just on the tip of my bill, but they're not coming out at this point in time. So, if you enjoyed today's collection of duckin' scary stories, consider flapping your hand towards that thumbs up button, as it helps the channel succeed. Yeah, that's a weird way to put that. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, well, subscribe, but the content you get won't be anything like this. I am sorry. Yeah. And if you feel so bold, scroll on down past the description of this video. There's a comment section down there. Leave me a duck emoji. That's all you gotta do. Quack, quack. You can also do super thanks or join memberships or Patreon, regularly access to content, nothing like this. And yeah. All that said, my fine feathered friends, I hope you're having a beautiful day wading through the ponds. I hope your little webbed feet are squelching in the mud on the shoreline. And I hope the sun shines brightly upon you so that you may warm yourself in the cool waters. And I hope that you're doing well. Until I see you again, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you're the best duck that you can be. Never let anyone quackin' tell you otherwise, and please, never forget it. And until I see you again, my beautiful, beautiful ducks, I hope that you simply quack well.